Today, I am proposing my plan for a regional rail service pilot in the New York metro area. I selected the LIRR's Port Washington branch, Atlantic branch, Metro North Railroad's Harlem line south of Mount Vernon West, Hudson line south of Yonkers, and New Haven line south of New Rochelle, and the New Jersey Transit Northeast Corridor line as pilot candidates before a formal unification of the three systems and a full system-wide conversion into regional rail. Since this is a pilot program, I do not expect it to require massive capital investments. Instead, it should be ready to start in 1 to 2 years. Regardless, some minor investments will be needed for the pilot program to move forward. First, a series of infill stations will be needed. I propose infill stations at Sunnyside, Winfield Junction, Elmhurst, Woodhaven Junction, 149th Street Grand Concourse, and North Brunswick. And fare gates will have to be installed at stations along the pilot lines. Most stations will get fare gates at all platforms, though at larger hubs, only certain platforms will get it. With fare gates, riders will enter and exit the regional rail system using Omni, Google Pay, Apple Pay, or other contactless payment methods. Fares for traveling within New York city limits and north of Newark Airport in New Jersey will be $2.9, with free transfers to subway and buses. Fares for traveling outside the city limits will be lowered. Discounts will be provided for trips beyond the regional rail pilot zone. Finally, operational procedures have to be improved at terminals for trains to be turned around faster, maximizing the capacity. This could include having trains going to service directly after terminating, reducing the time needed for trains to reverse. Next, let's talk about how the service will operate. But first, a disclaimer. All proposed service levels below are in theory. Further study is needed to determine how many trains we can actually get. For the LIRR Atlantic branch, things are relatively simple. Trains will run between Atlantic Terminal and Jamaica, making all stops. With this setup, I propose running 24 trains per hour or a train every 2.5 minutes during rush hour, 20 trains per hour or a train every 3 minutes during weekday, midday hours, and 15 trains per hour or a train every 4 minutes during weekends. An argument I have with myself is whether or not to keep through service from Long Island. There is demand for traveling between Long Island and Brooklyn, but it will eat into capacity and complicate the fare system. Will riders be willing to transfer if the Atlantic branch service is much more frequent than the current level? That might be something we need to figure out. Next, let's talk about the three Metro North Railroad pilots: the Hudson line between Grand Central and Yonkers, the Harlem line between Grand Central and Mount Vernon West, and the New Haven line between Grand Central and New Rochelle. Now, this may be controversial, but I propose that all regional rail trains make all local stops using the altitude tracks. Service to points beyond the pilot section will run non-stop to the last stop in the pilot zone, aka Yonkers, Mount Vernon West, or New Rochelle, using the inner two tracks, before continuing northward. Based on 2024 ridership statistics, I propose 10 trains per hour or a train every 6 minutes to and from New Rochelle, and 7 trains per hour or a train every 8.5 minutes to and from Yonkers and Mount Vernon West during rush hour, 6 trains per hour or a train every 10 minutes on each line during weekday midday, and 5 trains per hour or a train every 12 minutes on each line during the weekend. Finally, let's talk about the LIRR Port Washington branch and New Jersey Transit Northeast Corridor line. These two are the most complex as they would involve through running trains at New York Penn Station and joint operations between New Jersey Transit and the LIRR. The MTA did joint operate with NJT under the Metro North Railroad, so it should be doable. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, I expect this pilot to be ready in the very near future, so the extra capacity we get through the Gateway Tunnel will not be considered yet. Under this pilot program, a number of Port Washington branch trains will continue west after New York Penn Station, replacing a certain number of NJT Northeast Corridor line trains. Based on the ETA analysis, New York Penn Station can handle around 30 trains per hour, with through-running trains on tracks 7 to 16. However, the North River Tunnel can only handle 24 trains per hour and has to be split between other NJT branches and Amtrak intercity services, so around 10 trains per hour on the Northeast Corridor line is more realistic. Like the Atlantic Branch and the 3 Metro-North Railroad pilots, trains will run local on the New York side. However, I argue that the express service is preserved on the New Jersey side as capacity cannot be increased at the moment because of the North River Tunnel. Those service patterns will be simplified. Local trains will make all stops. Express trains will make all stops in New York and stop at Secaucus Junction, Newark Penn Station, Newark Airport, Rahway, Metro Park, New Brunswick, Princeton Junction, Hamilton, and Trenton in New Jersey. During rush hour, I propose 10 trains per hour operating through service. 5 of them will be between Port Washington and Trenton, running express in New Jersey, and the other 5 will be between Great Neck and North Brunswick, making all stops. Additionally, another 5 trains per hour will run between Great Neck and Grand Central Madison. In total, stations between Port Washington and Manhasset will get 5 trains per hour, or a train every 12 minutes. Stations between Great Neck and New York Penn Station or Grand Central Madison will get 15 trains per hour, or a train every 4 minutes. Stations between New York Penn Station and Trenton will get 5 to 10 trains per hour, or a train every 6 to 12 minutes. During weekday midday, I propose 12 trains per hour. 3 trains per hour will run between Port Washington and Trenton, running express in New Jersey. 5 trains per hour will run between Great Neck and Trenton, making all stops. 4 trains per hour will run between Great Neck and Grand Central Madison. In total, stations between Port Washington and Manhasset will get 3 trains per hour, or a train every 20 minutes. Stations between Great Neck and Trenton will get between 5 to 8 trains per hour, or a train every 7.5 to 12 minutes. During the weekend, I propose 6 trains per hour between Port Washington and Trenton, with 4 making all stops and 2 running express in New Jersey, and 4 trains per hour between Great Neck and Grand Central Madison. In total, stations between Port Washington and Manhasset and New York Penn Station and Trenton will get 4 to 6 trains per hour, or a train every 10 to 15 minutes. Stations between Great Neck and Sunnyside will get 10 trains per hour, or a train every 6 minutes. The reason I propose for regional rail trains to run local is to maximize capacity. Even though riders lose express service, the much higher service frequency, which equals less time spent waiting for a train, will make up for the time savings of skipping stops, so I think it is worth it. Next, I want to talk about rolling stocks. The seating layout on current fleets of the commuter rail lines prioritize comfort. To better accommodate the needs of the regional rail pilot, I propose a new fleet of trains called the M10 series, customized for regional rail operation. These trains will feature wider doors and more standing room. It will come with half commuter rail style and half subway style seating. To allow for through running, these trains can be powered by both third rail and overhead wire. Passenger information screens similar to the ones on the R211 subway trains will be present above the doors. A regional rail system like this has many benefits. Most lines will see a boom in service frequency. Even though the service level during weekday midday and the weekends is lower than weekday rush hour, it is still a significant improvement over what we get today. For riders traveling between New Jersey, Queens, and Nassau County, this pilot program will make their trip faster and easier by introducing through running. The regional rail service will also help relieve congestion on paralleling busy subway lines, such as Port Washington Branch parallels the 7 train, the Metro-North Railroad parallels the Lexington Avenue line, Concourse line, and White Plains Road line. This is a smart and cost-effective way to increase capacity. While many people have ideas like extending the 2nd Avenue subway to the Bronx or building a Northern Boulevard subway, which, don't get me wrong, are not necessarily bad ideas. Sometimes we should think outside the box and utilize existing infrastructure to the maximum first. I bet I will get comments saying that what I propose is unrealistic and will never happen. But when you see the other great regional rail systems across the globe, you will find this not to be a crazy idea. In fact, I think the scale I proposed here is pretty conservative. Of course, this is just a pilot program to give New Yorkers a first taste of regional rail. I will work out a separate video covering my full regional rail proposal beyond the pilot program, which will be much more ambitious, involving a unification of the 3 commuter rail systems and multiple billion-dollar capital projects, including the Gateway program and Penn Station access, as well as other projects proposed by me or other transit advocates. These projects will further boost capacity, which I definitely want to utilize. Eventually, my goal is to have a frequent, efficient, world-class regional rail network serving the New York metro area. What are your thoughts on my regional rail pilot proposal? Share with me in the comments below. If you want to see a video about my regional rail system plan beyond the pilot, please tell me in the comments below. Besides regional rail, Deinterlining is another cost-effective way to increase capacity. You can learn about it in this playlist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that playlist.